Okay, let's try this. Okay, so eye color, eye color. So this is something that I will not go into with my, my Bio 1 class, but because you guys are honors, you do need to be aware that there's a lot of traits that are polygenic. So poly means many, right? That prefix poly, that means many genes, right? Polygenic. So that means that these traits are produced by the interaction of two or more genes. So a big example of this is eye color. Eye color is, there's at least 3 genes for eye color. So we have 3 of them here. We got BAY1, BAY2, and GAI. And those are 3 genes that are known to impact eye color. But there can be more. So there's at least 3. So you can see here that the blue eye color is the recessive allele in all of these cases. So this, again, eye color is an example of a polygenic trait. You can think of it as if you have any dimmer light switches in your house, it's kind of like that, where you're just controlling the shade and it's not like on off. So you could have like an on off light switch, or you can have like a dimmer switch, okay? So they talk about down here why eye color is expressed the way it is. It has to do, again, with that melanin. We talked about melanin with albinism. So it's a ratio of the melanin in your eyes. And we actually, in blue eyes, you can see here, let me use my drawing tool. Okay. Whoop. Down here, scattering of light. So remember, light can be reflected, it can be absorbed, but it can also be refracted. So that's what this scattering of light means. So people with blue eyes, they don't have a lot of melanin, but also their collagen fibers in their iris actually refract and scatter the light that hits their eyes, and that's one of the reasons that they appear blue. Pretty cool. Okay. Last slide for today. Key vocabulary. Okay, so this is an overview of pretty much all the vocabulary that we've had so far. So we'll walk through this slide, and then this will be it for today. But this is a lot. This is a lot of information. So please, again, I encourage you to make yourself note cards. Maybe try that Quizlet assignment to get yourself familiar with Quizlet. Quizlet, can be very helpful in a lot of your classes. So if you can get comfortable with using it, and you might have the extra time right now, you may not, but you might have the extra time right now to really master Quizlet. And so that is highly suggested. Okay, so we start up here with a trait. A trait is linked to a specific gene, right? And you have that same gene on the pair of homologous chromosomes. So a trait or a gene, examples of those are eye color, height, hair color. If we're talking about the pea plants, it would be the flower color, the pod shape, the height. Those are examples of the trait. Then we have the characteristic of the trait, the version of the trait, which would be the allele. And remember, you get 1 allele from your mom and 1 from your dad, because you get 50% of your genetics from your mom and 50% from your dad. So you are carrying 2 copies of every gene you have. And those versions, those copies, are called alleles. Okay, so an allele is a version of a trait. So we're talking about, again, we talked about eye color has a lot of different things that impact it, but if we're talking about eye color in the binary sense, like an either or situation, the characteristic would be blue eyes or brown eyes. If height was also binary, we'd say tall or short. If we're talking about pea plants, it would be the white or the purple flowers. Those are versions of a trait. Diploid, remember, we are all diploid. We're all diploid condition. No one walks around haploid. You can think of diploid as like a pair of socks that are always together. And that is the 2N condition. That's talking about those matching, chromosomes, again, of homologous chromosomes. That's the diploid condition. In our bodies, the only thing that is haploid are our gametes, our sex cells. Okay, so that would either be sperm or egg. Ovum is the more scientific term that you'll see for an egg, or if you're talking about the plural of ovum, that would be ova. So you might see the word ova or ovum in relation to gametes or sex cells. That's talking about the egg. So there's the sperm and the egg. Those are the haploid condition. And that makes sense, right? Because those two things have to come together to create us, right? And we are diploid. So if you had two diploid come together, you would have quadruple, right? That would be like 4N, which we don't want. If we always doubled our genetics every time, that would not be good. Okay, homologous. This is talking about the same chromosomes, those matching paired chromosomes. They each contain the same genes, right? They have the same locus or location or address for genes on both of them. Okay, homozygous. Those are matching alleles, right? And you have two different versions of homozygous. You have homozygous dominant and you have homozygous recessive. Heterozygous, you're going to have two versions of a trait, two different alleles. You're going to have a capital and a lowercase letter, a dominant and a recessive version of the trait. I will ask that you always try to do the capital letter first. That's typically in genetics what you'll see. However, this is not technically incorrect, but I prefer this one. Okay, so dominant alleles represented by the capital letter, and they're always expressed when present. We talked about that today. Recessive alleles, lowercase, like this, and they're only expressed when it's homozygous, right? You only see the phenotype for the recessive allele if it's homozygous recessive. This is the only time that the phenotype is the recessive trait. Okay, genotype is what is coded. Again, examples are the letters. So if I asked you to describe something's genotype, you would either write the letters or you would use these words to describe the letters: homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, or heterozygous. Remember, homo means same, so you can remember this. These are both the same letters, but you can have two capital letters, which would be two dominant versions of the trait, or you can have two lowercase letters, which is two recessive versions of the trait. Hetero means different. So heterozygous, you have one dominant allele and one recessive allele. Phenotype, think physical. Phenotype, physical. That's the physical characteristic of a trait. What is expressed in pea plants? That is the purple or the white flower. It is tall or short. That is the phenotype. So you can have different genotypes, right? Because you could have heterozygous and the homozygous dominant actually have the same phenotype. So you have to remember that these are not necessarily always going to match up, the genotype and the phenotype, as far as the ratio and numbers of those two. And then just to repeat this, and again, it was in the Amoeba Sisters video as well, just because a trait is dominant, it does not mean that it is normal or more common than a recessive trait. So we've talked about this a couple times. It was in videos. This is a very typical test question that you'll see in genetics classes or in standardized testing. This is a very common question because intuitively you would think that a dominant trait would be always more common, and that's not necessary. All right, so I think this will be the last lecture of the week. I hope you have enjoyed so far learning about genetics. Again, I know this week has been a lot of vocabulary, but stick with it. And I miss seeing your faces. Hopefully I have office hours going on Monday, so I hope to see some of your faces via video conferencing. So if you're watching this on Friday, have a great weekend. Bye.